The third generation of Babylonian Amoraim faced a period of severe geographic dislocation. For decades, the intellectual gravity of Jewish scholarship had rested firmly in the established older academies of Sura and Nehardea. But as political reality shifted, those historic centers began to lose their primacy. This photograph shows the monumental arch of Ctesiphon, a remnant of the new epicenter of power situated on the banks of the Tigris River. This was the capital of the Sasanian Empire, a sprawling metropolis commanding immense resources. Just outside the capital's gates sat Mehoza, a wealthy, predominantly Jewish suburb. As the center of empire, Mehoza became the new staging ground for halakhic development in Babylon. Here we encounter a historical paradox. When studying the Babylonian Talmud today, history assigns almost total credit for its complex dialectical method of learning to one scholar, Rava. But Rava did not emerge in a vacuum. His specific methodology, his access to competing schools of thought, and his financial independence were all engineered by a single, frequently overlooked figure, his father, Rav Yosef bar Hama. Rav Yosef bar Hama was a scholarly aristocrat. By fusing competing legal traditions and leveraging the massive capital flowing through the imperial center, he built the structural infrastructure that his son would later use to architect the Bavli. Mehoza was an intense socio-economic laboratory. Its streets were highly cosmopolitan, populated by international merchants, specialized craftsmen, and a significant influx of converts adjusting to Jewish communal life. This Sasanian silver coin perfectly reflects the physical reality of the region. Mehoza generated immense, concentrated wealth due to its position as a primary nexus for international trade. We can see the proximity to power in this rock relief illustrating the Sasanian crown. Mehozan Jews, particularly its upper class, engaged directly with this royal authority and the Jewish Exilarch, navigating high-stakes statecraft on a daily basis. This environment produced the concept of the scholarly aristocrat. Instead of choosing between spiritual devotion and commercial success, this elite class merged rigorous Torah study with immense private wealth. Rav Yosef bar Hama serves as the ultimate prototype of this Mehozan model. His extensive personal capital allowed him to bypass the daily labor that burdened other scholars. He reinvested those resources directly into education, constructing a self-sustaining dynastic network. Governing a complex international merchant class living adjacent to the royal court required sophisticated civil codes. Talmudic jurisprudence had to evolve to manage this new reality. This diagram maps the intellectual dichotomy of the third Amoraic generation. The legal landscape was divided between two dominant methodologies. On the left, we have Rav Sheshet, a scholar who represented absolute, unyielding textual tradition. Though completely blind, Rav Sheshet possessed a phenomenal, rigid memory. He mastered the earliest tannaitic texts, the baraitot and toseftot, serving as an unquestionable human archive of ancient law. On the right side of our diagram is Rav Nahman, representing pragmatic application and statecraft. As the Chief Justice of Mehoza and son-in-law to the Exilarch, Rav Nahman demanded a focus on practical civil law, dealing with contracts, property, and the immediate needs of a trading hub. Rav Yosef bar Hama physically and intellectually bridged these two opposing worlds. He acted as Rav Sheshet's primary conduit in Mehoza. He preserved his master's rigid texts with such confidence that he regularly debated him on complex details, as recorded in tractate Bava Mitzia. Simultaneously, he held a permanent seat in Rav Nahman's inner circle, absorbing the fluidity and realism of modern civil codes. The result was a specific operational hybrid. Here was a scholar holding an arsenal of ancient tannaitic traditions, yet equipped with the legal sharpness to deploy them within a bustling modern economy. Combining flawless textual recall with elite civil jurisprudence was the exact operational synthesis required to successfully govern the elites of Mehoza. To prove how this socio-economic adaptation functioned, we have to examine the raw data, the specific rulings, or sugiot, preserved in the Talmud. These ancient brick ruins represent the physical property and corporate holdings typical of the era. In Tractate Gittin 14a, Rav Yosef bar Hama transmits a precise ruling regarding the physical transfer of funds from one party to another via a messenger. He delivers this ruling directly in the name of Rav Nahman's tradition of civil law. An international trade hub cannot function on vague promises. It relies entirely on the strict laws of agency, determining the exact legal second a transaction is acquired and liability shifts. Then, we see him pivot to a radically different legal realm. In Shulin 56b, he dictates the exact anatomical signs of a perforated rectum in a slaughtered animal. This highly technical, physical ruling is transmitted specifically in the name of Rav Sheshet. This proves his intellectual range. He moves effortlessly from abstract corporate jurisprudence to the rigorous, messy physical reality of dietary laws. He also applied this scrutiny to social morality. In Sota 21a, he defines the concept of the cunning wicked. He concludes that the cunning wicked person is not a secret criminal. Rather, it is a social manipulator who uses pure charisma to force others into accepting his skewed worldview. In a city driven by wealth and influence, this acts as a direct psychological critique of his own aristocratic society, warning against the weaponization of charm. Taken together, these rulings form a complete societal operating system. They provided Mehoza's elite with commercial law, ritual boundaries, and a strict moral warning against the corruption inherent in immense wealth. Let's clarify a friction point confusing Talmud students. We are looking at two distinct figures sharing similar names. On the left is Rav Yosef bar Hia, known as the Sinai for his vast knowledge. He served as head of the Pumbedita Academy. This is the man featured in famous Talmudic anecdotes describing Rava's intense reverence for his teacher. On the right is Rav Yosef bar Hama, the Mehozan aristocrat and Rava's biological father. The father utilized his wealth to fund his son's geographic mobility. He paid for Rava to travel and study across all the major academies in Babylonia. While the teacher in Pumbedita provided the intense intellectual sparring, the father in Mehoza engineered the financial and dynastic infrastructure that made his son's eventual total halakhic supremacy possible. The evolution of halakhah is permanently tied to the socio-economic realities of its practitioners. Rav Yosef bar Hama never sought the formal title of Rosh Yeshiva for himself. He operated behind the scenes. His objective was to channel his proximity to the Sasanian crown and his dual mastery of law into laying a firm generational infrastructure. He passed that completed foundation directly to his son, Rava. Leveraging this setup, Rava eventually centralized all Babylonian Torah study exclusively within the city gates of Mehoza. The intellectual inheritance is clear. Rava's famous reliance on stable tannaitic sources traces straight back to his father's deep connection to Rav Sheshet. This graph illustrates the transfer of power, and Rava's confidence as Mehoza's premier judge stems directly from his father's training under Rav Nahman. Every brilliant dialectical deduction authored by Rava in the Talmud relies on this foundation. It is the direct, calculated return on investment of Rav Yosef bar Hama's Mehuzan synthesis.